Welcome to Biggest Spoilars, the destination for exclusive spoilers, latest updates.
General Hospital spoilers report some of the finest youthful people in Port Charles are aspiring to take the world by storm, and we're bound to see many of them do it. While a couple might formerly have their footing in what's shaping up to be veritably adult stories, others still have some growing up to do. In the meantime, they're likely to travel down paths that could steer them fully out course from where they're now. We're seeing a bit of that formerly with the likes of Rocco Falconeri and Giovanni Gio Palmieri. Are they reparable, or will they take effects too far? From Jocelyn Joss Jack's new life as a WSB agent, to Charlotte Cassadine's boundary-pushing station, what might lie in store for the Port Chucks kiddies down the line? Emma as the new Joss, and Joss as the new Anna, who differently is taking note of how important Emma Scorpio Drake Glass is the person we allowed. Joss was going to be? Passionate about beast rights, committed to her musketeers, and a loyal advocate for pushing for the effects she believes in, she's the grown-up interpretation of Joss, which is good, because Joss isn't who we allowed. She was going to be moreover. She's shaping up to be the coming super asset of Port Charles. Her covert WSB persona is starting to image that of a youngish Anna Devane in numerous ways. Perhaps that was always the point? GH spoilers claim Gio, Rocco, and Danny could go either way. These three sisters are each on the right track to come good men we will remain proud of, but one bad experience could shoot any of them into a breakdown. We've watched Rocco struggle with right and wrong this time, nearly accidentally ending his own life at one point. We've also watched him push back against authority and break the rules, right alongside Gio and Danny Morgan. We've seen Joe's darker side as he suffered the verity about his birth and lineage, and our hearts broke watching Danny lose his mama and lash out at everyone around him for it. They each have warm hearts and dark sides. It's anyone's conjecture which they'll each grasp as they get aged. Charlotte might spell trouble. Charlotte is presumably the most questionable bone in the bunch. She isn't only a Cassadine, but the son of Valentine Cassadine, who's really one of the most disagreeing members of the Dark Dynasty. He's got a softer side, but sabotage frequently wrecks it. Seeing Charlotte choose her father over stability and her mama again and again makes me worry for her future the most. Are you with me? The day began under deceptively peaceful skies in Port Charles, as soft church bells echoed through the square and the community gathered for what was meant to be a sacred, grounding baptism ceremony, a moment of renewal and hope that so many desperately needed after weeks of fear and unanswered questions, and as the minister spoke gentle words about forgiveness, rebirth, and finding light even after walking through darkness, few could have imagined that the calm would be shattered in the most jaw-dropping way possible, because just as the water was blessed and the first encouraging phrases about faith and second chances filled the air, the doors to the church slowly opened and every single head turned as Sam McCall stepped inside beside Anna Devane, alive, shaken, and very much together, their sudden appearance sending a visible shockwave through the room, gasps rippling from pew to pew as Jason froze mid-step. Dante's breath caught painfully in his chest. Alexis clutched her heart as tears welled instantly, and Sunny's eyes narrowed with a mixture of disbelief and warning, because Sam was supposed to be gone, missing, possibly dead, and Anna's fate had been whispered about in hushed, fearful tones for weeks, yet here they were, standing shoulder to shoulder, battered but unbroken, their expressions carrying the weight of secrets that could tear the town apart. The minister's voice faltered as the baptism paused, but Anna, ever composed even when emotionally frayed, lifted her chin and spoke calmly, urging everyone to breathe, to listen, and to remember that survival sometimes comes at a terrible cost, her words oddly mirroring the ceremony's theme of rebirth, as Sam reached out to Alexis, whispering reassurance that she was here now, that she had fought her way back, that whatever darkness tried to claim her had failed, and those encouraging words broke the dam of emotion, Alexis openly sobbing as she embraced her daughter while Jason stood frozen, torn between relief and fury, because relief meant Sam was alive, but fury demanded answers about where she'd been and who had taken her. Anna then addressed the room more firmly, explaining that their return was no coincidence, that they had uncovered something dangerous, something buried deep within Port Charles that involved powerful players who believed fear could silence the truth, and at that moment the baptism's holy calm felt ironic, almost cruel, because the water symbolized cleansing while the air crackled with unresolved rage, especially when Sonny stepped forward and warned Anna not to bring chaos into a sacred space, his tone sharp, his threat unspoken but unmistakable, making it clear that if her revelations endangered his family or business, there would be consequences, prompting Anna to lock eyes with him and quietly remind him that the truth doesn't care where it's spoken and that secrets rot no matter how tightly they're guarded. Sam then turned to Dante, her voice trembling but resolute, telling him she never stopped fighting to come home, that every terrifying moment away she clung to the belief that she was loved, that she mattered, and those heartfelt, encouraging words softened Dante's hardened expression just enough to reveal how deeply her absence had wounded him. Yet even as the emotional reunions unfolded, darker energy seeped in when a shadowy figure lingered outside the church, unseen but listening, silently confirming that Sam and Anna's survival was a complication that would need to be handled, because their return threatened to expose crimes long hidden. Inside, the baptism finally resumed, the minister carefully choosing words about strength through trials and faith tested by fire, and as the water touched the infant's forehead, Anna watched intently, clearly moved, later confiding quietly to Felicia that being presumed dead had forced her to confront every regret she'd ever buried, every relationship she'd neglected, and she vowed that if she had been given another chance, she would use it to protect Port Charles even if it made her enemies, a declaration that felt less like hope and more like a promise of war. Meanwhile, Sam found herself surrounded by loved ones offering encouragement, hands squeezing hers, voices assuring her she was safe now, yet she couldn't shake the fear coiled in her chest because she knew whoever orchestrated her disappearance would not simply retreat, and that fear turned to steel when she overheard whispers suggesting she should stay quiet for her own safety, a suggestion that ignited her anger, because silence was what nearly killed her, and she vowed under her breath that she would never be quiet again. Tension reached a breaking point when Jason finally confronted Anna, demanding to know who was responsible and whether they were still a threat, his voice low and lethal, and Anna answered honestly that yes, the threat remained, and worse, it lived among them, sending a chill through everyone within earshot, while outside, that same unseen watcher sent a warning text promising that Sam's return would be short-lived if she continued down this path. An angry threat that underscored just how dangerous the situation had become. As the congregation dispersed, the church buzzing with speculation and fear, Port Charles was left forever changed, because the baptism that was meant to symbolize new beginnings instead marked the start of a brutal reckoning, one where encouragement would be tested, loyalties would fracture, and anger would erupt into open conflict. And as Sam and Anna stepped out into the sunlight together, determined and united, they understood that surviving was only the first battle, and that the real fight, against those who wanted them silenced, erased, or broken, was only just beginning. General Hospital gives several women in Port Charles that really need love in their lives, but none further than Ava Jerome. Moment we're going to talk about the Joe that needs to get with Ava to season effects up. Ava has had two men in her life lately. One was a Joe she watched about, or allowed she watched about, and the other was just a veritably bodacious distraction. Of course, I'm talking about Rick Lansing and Cody Bell. Ava's history snares on General Hospital. A closer look at Rick and Cody. To be honest, I'm not sure that Rick ever had a place in Ava's heart. I do and suppose she loved Rick. I suppose Ava got a crush on her counsel and they had really good chemistry. But I do and suppose Rick inspired any kind of head-over-heels passions in Ava. I also suppose that part of the magnet to Rick is the fact that she's competitive. Ava knew Rick still had passions for Elizabeth Weber and Ava wanted Rick to choose her over delicacy to choose Elizabeth. So, I suppose substantially it was just because Ava's petty like that. As for Rick, he'd prefer to be with Liz, but she said no. So, he was with Ava because she's sexy and she was a steady income sluice until her plutocrat ran out, and also they were doing blackmail together. But from his side also, Rick and Ava were into great love. I no way saw Rick and Ava having any long-term eventuality for numerous reasons. As for Cody, he was just a boy toy for Ava to play with to make Rick jealous. There was no way any long-term eventuality for Cody and Ava. Moreover, that was just that Christina Corinthos Davis scheme. But Ava does need a love interest because a sexy bad girl like that's too hot to waste. Ava's type on GH, a history of villains and good guys gone wrong. Rick is enough typical choice for her. Ava generally goes to axes and she chooses villains or super good guys. So Rick's a villain, obviously, and so was Franco Baldwin back in his crazy killer days, and that's when she dated him. He's another of Ava's spouses. An illustration of one really good, decent Joe she dated was Griffin Monroe, but he couldn't deal with Ava's bad girl capers and started dating her son Kiki Jerome rather. And if you flash back, she allowed. She was falling in love with sweet Dr. Kevin Collins, but Ava really had his psycho family Ryan Chamberlain in her bed. So, that's the ultimate bad Joe thing. Let's talk about who's on the scene in Port Charles that might catch Ava Jerome's eye. Unfortunately, she's formerly on Jen Sidwell's radar. Ava and Sidwell have been flirting up a storm ever since he came to city. Now, at first Ava was hopeless to vend him precious artwork because she was beggared. But also, Sidwell's kittenish ways sounded to legal charm her, and they've Lucas Jones and Marco Rios in common. He's interested in Ava, but only because of how deeply she's tied to Sonny Corinthos because of their son, Avery Corinthos. Now, as racy as Sidwell is, I detest the idea of Ava being with him. First of all, Sidwell would kill Ava at a moment's notice on a vagrancy or if he allowed. It would do commodity for him. Secondly, Sonny would flip out if she was with Sidwell and he'd try to keep Avery down from Ava. And we don't need another guardianship battle between those two. Exploring implicit suitors for Ava on General Hospital but who differently is single and ready to mingle in Port Charles that might catch Ava's eye. Well, it might be intriguing, stick with me on this, to see Nathan West with Ava. And that's because I don't suppose that's really Nathan. I suppose there's notoriety differently in his head that's wearing Nathan's face, principally like a mask. Imagine if Ava allowed. She was with bodacious good Joe Bobby Nathan only to find out it wasn't him at all and it was really, behind that face, Caesar Faison or his awful other son Peter August. It'd be kind of a redo of when Ava was shocked and affrighted by the Ryan and Kevin twist. Ava's electric chemistry with Sonny on GH also. And I know a lot of people will detest this, I enjoy Ava with Sonny. I mean, Maura West has chemistry with everybody. She'd have chemistry with a fern. Back when her family Julian Jerome was around, he and Ava indeed had chemistry, which was a bit disturbing. But Maura and Maurice are electric together. And Ava easily has some buried passions for Sonny. Flashback, GH teased them getting together back when Sonny's meds were being meddled up by the dirty druggist. I suppose it was Valentine Cassadine that was doing that, right? So Ava was living in Sonny's extension and falling for him. And there was what felt like some affection there. I've actually hoped for a while that they would put Ava and Sonny in a real love, but I'm not sure the GH pens would ever do it. And I know a boatload of suckers would rage if Ava got with Sonny in any meaningful way. But I still kind of low crucial boated indeed though I know it's not going to happen, weighing the odds on other implicit loves in that same tone. Dante Falconeri is single, but I suppose he'd literally set himself on fire before he touched Ava. The part she played in his family Morgan Corinthos' death is enough to make the idea of him being with Ava a total no-go agony for Dante. One Joe that might have worked would have been Professor Hank Dalton with Ava, but after Sidwell made Dalton some dead junk in Lara's box, that's off the table. But let's circle back around to Cody because I did suppose he and Ava had chemistry and some eventuality. But we know Cody has that crush on Molly Lansing Davis. Also again, I like the recast actress and all that, but the character is enough boring. So, it would kind of be a shame to waste Cody on Molly. I suppose putting him with Ava would be a much better use of Cody. But I'm sure General Hospital will stick with the buckaroo. And Lady Council slow burn rather. Jason Morgan's single, but he hates Ava and he's easily meant to be with Britt Westbourne, so he's not an option. A match made in hell. Could Drew Kane be Ava's perfect partner? But you know who could be a match made in hell for Ava? Now this Joe is married right now, but we all know that's not going to last. What about Congressman Cutthroat, aka Drew Kane? We all know that Willow Tate hates her new hubby and she's going to cut Drew out of her life as soon as possible. Also of course he'll be maddened and each alone. And I'm laying that Willow is going to make it clear that they will no way, ever be together. So that crazy sickie Drew is going to need notoriety new to fixate on. And why not Ava? She generally does more when she's involved with someone who's not a good Joe, and Drew is surely not a good Joe. And Ava doesn't mind a little bit of crazy in her men. She was hooking up with Franco back in his really dark days. Plus, Ava seems to like to take Nina's sloppy seconds like she did with Rick, and Nina did tell Ava that the coitus was hot. So, if Drew transferred all of his compulsive attention from Willow over to Ava, it could work. I suppose if Drew was completely fixated on Ava, that would presumably be commodity that she might actually enjoy. She liked it when Ryan was pretending to be Kevin and was fixated on her and idolized on her and adored her. So, yeah, I suppose Drew and Ava actually have some implicit, and Drew getting with Ava would mean they might inflict annihilation in Port Charles, and that could be adulatory fun, too.